All right. So I am. Where do I start with this? Oh, yes. So this is the day where you're out of. You don't got the chocolate chips. You don't. You don't have those. So what are you gonna make? And you just made peanut butter the other day, and brownies before that. So you have to. You got to change it up a little. So what I've realized is I didn't want to go to the store first off. I'm out of creamer. I can see the empty creamer here. No liquid for. So the point is, this is the kind of day where you make a coffee cake, and a coffee cake is not only the cookie base, but you got to get the crumbly top, and you aren't getting, and it's layers too. So that means that you're gonna do a liquid. You need another apple. You're gonna do the liquid top of it, and I didn't have any creamer. See, it all comes full circle here. And so I'm doing the apple. In a kitchen, I learned that every kitchen, when you start working there, what you have to do is learn how to peel an apple different in every kitchen. And it doesn't matter what chef you're working with, you have to start over and learn how to peel it the way that they want you to do it. And I've been seeing a lot of reels they've been coming up lately. I guess that I'm having more interest in cooking of late, and I don't know how Facebook knows this. I haven't liked anything related to cooking, but I have been watching quite a few reels, and I guess I have the same taste as this chef. So here we are. I have one peeled. I seriously doubt that will be enough. So may as well do one more apple. And then at any rate, so I was going to talk about today, not only was I going to discuss depression, but I was going to talk a little about peeling the apple. So here we are, phase 2. I'm trying to understand depression because according to standards, I've never been depressed before. A depressive episode lasts for 2 weeks, and actually it's more like a month, but like a major depressive episode will last for a total of 2 weeks, where you don't feel anything positive. And naturally everybody knows what depression is, but I don't, so I've been learning about it. And okay, so now what I'm doing is phases here. I have to get like 1 or 2 bowls out. I'm gonna put the liquid of this in one bowl, and I'm gonna do the sugar in the other. Because this is a coffee cake. If you're unfamiliar with what is that, there's some, this is a cultural thing. Coffee cake is cinnamon and sugar. Okay, so that's obviously nobody wants to talk about cooking. So this is going to be the topper. I don't know why I'm just getting both bowls out right now, and they're ready to go when I need them. So the best place to start with depression is where everybody thinks that it starts, and that's working from the bottom up here. You get depressed when you have death, and then you're grieving. That's the cinnamon. So cinnamon's here, got raisins here. That's a lot of weight on that. No, I won't. So when somebody experiences some major event that is well known to, there's a psychologist must be the source of normal, and so they study these different events like the death of a loved one, and what else kind of depressing thing can happen in somebody's life. You get fired, that's quality. You get I'm awful at this, but it's very clear when it happens, and there's, oh, okay, here's another one. Your friend, they move away because you were mean to them, and so you have these external, or what is called a independent factor, an independent source of depression that you have, and there's a normative value of the, like, and a value, not a value, but a normative rating of how much depression that causes. And psychologists will know this when they're conducting an interview. You also have a self-rating of things, and those don't work as well. It's sort of infamous in the field of psychology is that self-ratings, you know, you get a test and you have to go through and say this and that is, I feel depressed or whatever. Those are infamously a bad source of what is an independent evaluation of how depressed is this person supposed to be. So, all right, so you have these different things, and then the depressive episode begins. That's when you feel hopeless, or you feel worthless, and you haven't felt any joy or interest of any kind that you would normally have in your hobbies or your friends, and you start missing school, and you start not calling up your friends and stuff, and you are technically depressed. And that's no fun. Because then you're at a psychologist's office, and here we go, same ingredients as always. There's a psychotherapist. So bottom-up theory is basically where everybody starts with the biology of it. So there are these physical symptoms, and you show up, and this is the most common thing. People will feel low energy. They feel, what's the other one? They show up, they have a change in their sleep pattern. They end up waking up earlier, and they don't feel good, and they don't really know why they have these somatic issues. And so they show up at a doctor, and then they say, "Doctor, help me." And the doctor says, "I cannot do anything for you. I am helpless. Because what you are experiencing, you're going to have to go to a psychologist." And then they say, "Okay, so what's going on? You're feeling the exact same thing that everybody else feels. You don't have energy, and you aren't eating right, and you're not sleeping good, and you don't have any friends." So that's where it always starts, with the psychologist or psychotherapist. And what am I doing? Okay, so I'm making cookie base, and then after that I'll make some kind of a liquid top to spread over the top of these deliciousness. Right, so then the biological theory is, in the West, everybody will say, "I am a person who is needing to eat more, and I need to have more new cars, and my work and everybody's mean to me," and they blame it all on biology. So the hallmark of, so you have a person who's depressed, and they blame it on biology. So let's just start there. You have an HPA axis that's connected to your limbic system. That's your emotions, and within milliseconds of a perception, you see a person, they jump out of their car really fast, and some kind of perception, you see somebody who waves to you, and you don't know them. No, that's a bad one. You see somebody you know, yeah, and you say to them, "How are you today?" No, let's not start at the beginning. You're already talking to them, and okay, whatever. We'll just start at the beginning. "Hello, how are you today?" Now, that's a perception, and immediately, within milliseconds, it goes into the emotional processing in the limbic system. Then it becomes something somatic. Through the HPA. So all of that is biology, and you can say that there's something wrong, if they're feeling depressed. Although, yeah, so the reason that we're talking about depression is because within somebody's life, 40% of people will have depression. Women have it twice as often as men. Yeah, because they're PMS, that's why. So, women have it a lot more often than men. And there's a biological cause for that. And that is that you have more sugar. You have a hypersensitivity. You're anxious. You're hyper reactive, and that's because your HPA axis, your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal, or your HPP. So it all starts in the hypothalamus, and that is controlled by one's limbic system. That's just your emotions. And most oftentimes, a depressive episode will begin when a person is having some awful event, like grieving. Or they got fired, or they're sad because their favorite. Okay, so what I'm doing is 50% bread flour, 50% all-purpose AP. So they have a depressive event, very depressed. Yes. And then, because of these pre-existing conditions, such as hyperactive HPA, what's happened is that they have this so often that their system is in a state of the tension all the time, that when they get this major event, it's awful. It's an awful event. I don't know what to say about it, but they do, and they need somebody to empty their cup. So now we're in the psychotherapist's office, and if they commit suicide, then guess whose fault it is? So this is no laughing matter, and this person doesn't have a social support system anymore. That, I mean, obviously somebody dragged them in there, but that's into the offices. But nobody wants to go to the hospital. And nobody wants to stay at the psychotherapist's office. It's typical during intake. I mean, you sit with the old magazines, and you have you can go outside of the office to the neighboring place. There's like it's like what do they call that? The place where you get your back done, and a chiropractor, and you have your not a nutritionist, but what is some professional profession? So you're in a professional office's suite, and so that's where you are, and nobody wants to be there. So there are different theories of depression, and I'd prefer to discuss. Oh, you know what? I wish I did more cinnamon. Oh well. I would have liked to mix some cinnamon up into there. And I'm going to actually save some of this for the top. All right, so now what we do is to spread this out on, ooh, there's a big chunk of sugar. And so you got to get a base going. And so that when everybody grabs a cookie, then they feel like they have something to hold on to. I feel like it's sort of depressing to talk about depression, but there you go. Okay. I'm looking for a knife. So wow, I'm already at this phase. This is amazing. So there's some different theories of why people get depression. I mean, they're not really theories at this point, because the truth is that when psychotherapy began with Freud and Jung, you know, kind of the Wright brothers of psychotherapy. Before that, everybody kind of would just lock them up. By them, I mean people who were going to commit suicide, or people who were, you know, just not able to take care of themselves anymore. They'd have them in hospital, inpatient facility. So Freud and Jung, they came up with these different theories of that there's subconscious, something that somebody's never talked about before, that they never really, so then they get the chance to empty their cup with somebody who's gonna listen to them and is good at it. During intake especially, that's all that what do you call them does. They just listen and say, yes, mm-hmm. You know, that's a good one, is the paralinguistics and like nonverbals. So I need more liquid. This is hazelnut. So that's psychodynamic theory, and the idea is that when a major event occurs, you know, like 70% of the time, when it's the first time that they're having this major depressive episode for like 2 weeks, they can't even practically leave their house. They aren't sleeping right and stuff, and they don't care about anyone anymore. And that's, I don't know. Anyway, they show up and they're obviously depressed. And the psychodynamic theory says that there's like a bunch of different ways to explain. Oh, I'm gonna get the oven on. The lamest one, and I think starting from the bottom up is a decent idea. It's called cognitive theory. That's the idea that there's some process going on, and the more you do it, like the more that something negative happens to you, then your system ends up processing it in this way, or whatever. Then the psychodynamic theory, i.e. Freud and Jung, is that you have, ooh, this looks really good. You see? I'm being ironic. But it doesn't look bad. That's okay. That's where somebody shows up and why do I have another spoon? Where did this? Oh, that was the apple spoon. So, oh right. So in psychodynamic theory, people begin to see others as objects, and the person who's the object, and there is, oh man, oh yeah. So then what is it called? Oral, right? So then they enter the oral phase, and it's just like being a kid again. That's where you cannot distinguish yourself from others, and it's like the I've seen this video where it's sad, but that's the reality is that they learn mirroring techniques. That's what a psychotherapist does, and so they just sit there and they have to be the other person's body because the reality is that somebody, especially somebody who's depressed and they have all these maladaptive manners of just dysfunctional processing, dysfunctional cognitive functions, that they see somebody who says, "How are you?" and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh well, it's me." And so that's actually Beck's theory, is that there's a self, the world, the future, and your career, and that these are not working right. Okay, so that's his dysregulation. But so I've pretty much explained all the different theories. The point, though, is that somebody is really just dysfunctional manner of, wow, that's a lot of sugar. Look at this, I did too much. And this is not liquid enough. I would really love to just be able to pour it, but I didn't have any milk. What can you say? So they end up there, and so the person who is a psychotherapist, hold on, I'm on my soapbox here. They have to say for the other person is to come up with some language that is like, hey, I know that you're thinking of you're not feeling very good, but you gotta listen to me for a second. What about your best friend? What would you say to them? You don't want to do it. Well, you don't say that, but you're like, what would you say to them? What would you, and then the person who's sitting there like all depressed and stuff, they kind of go like, I don't. Maybe I should think about that. Like you impact other people, and most of the time, they're having troubles like or something with their social life and their work, their career, and all that. So yeah, this looks really yummy. And so the psychotherapist just kind of mirrors and listens, and that's what they do, and teaches them something that they can walk away with. So this looks really not that great, so I'm going to make it look a little bit better. There we go. So a depressive person, if it's really bad, then they get sent to inpatient for like a week or two. And if it's not so bad, then they just start psychotherapy immediately, and that's the only thing that they can do for it. All right, so I realized that I was so carried away with talking about this situation that I'd completely messed up. Normally, in this innermost layer, there would be so I'm taking it out. Luckily, it wasn't before like a crust was formed, and so what I'm doing is correcting, and I'm going to make sure that these all sink in there. But normally the middle layer would be like more separated, because you would have all the nuts are in the middle there, and also the raisins. I'm going to throw some raisins on there. Well, next time it'll be better. But yeah, it just looks really bad with a spoon. So I'm going to sink these in. You know, if I was really ambitious, I would talk about depression more, but the truth is that everybody knows about depression, so obviously don't want to hear about it. There we go. A fun fact about these guys. You can see you got the layers. Now, it was a little bit of a situation with the raisins. I didn't remember to throw them in the inside. And what happened is that they actually turned in, they all blew up. They've since collapsed, but they were not incorporated into the crustino on the top. So at any rate, so what are you thinking we call the cooking show? Because I kind of want to have an idea. I don't know, we'll figure it out. World
Unity Cuisine Culture Cooking Show.
Yeah, that's a good one, because we got to get some different cultures. And
We'll figure it out.